The sun filtered down through the canopy of manicured trees, casting dappled shadows across the smooth concrete drive of 4429 Riverbend Lane. DeShawn Carter stepped out of his faded, white pickup truck, toolbox in hand, his boots landing with a dull thud against the driveway. The quiet in this part of town had a different texture, soft and controlled, like noise itself had been taught manners. No barking dogs, no bass lines bleeding from windows, just birds and the distant hiss of a sprinkler rotating through its loop. He took a deep breath and glanced at the garage. The outdoor light was flickering again, just like the work order described, shorting out every few minutes. His clients usually weren't home, but this one was. A woman stood in the driveway's curve, leaning lightly against a white Lexus like it was part of her body, slim, polished, effortless. She wore loose linen pants and a navy blouse, her hair in a messy bun that still looked intentional. She didn't speak, just watched. DeShawn nodded politely, non-threatening, practiced and set to work. He unscrewed the light housing, careful not to scratch the finish. His hands moved with a rhythm born from years of repetition. Strip, twist, connect, test. He hummed to himself under his breath a Marvin Gaye hook, barely louder than the birds, just enough to drown out the quiet. That was starting to feel a little too loud. He could feel her eyes on him. Not like she was checking his work, like she was studying him. He tightened the final screw, rescued the glass plate, and was just reaching for the voltage tester when her voice broke the stillness. "You're handsome. You know that?" The words hit like a misfired nail gun, sudden, sharp, loud in the silence. DeShawn froze, fingers curled loosely around the tester. He turned his head slowly, unsure if he'd imagine it. She was still leaning, casual as ever, but there was no smile, no wink, just her, looking at him like she'd said something as mundane as nice weather today. DeShawn blinked. A slow recalibration. Thanks, he said, his voice lower than usual, tamped down by caution. He didn't ask what she meant, didn't joke back, just turned to the breaker box and flipped the switch. The garage light pulsed, then held steady, no flicker. "All set," he said after a beat, brushing his palms off on his jeans. She didn't move, just nodded once. "How much do I owe?" "Already billed to your account," he replied, collecting his tools. He walked back to the truck without looking over his shoulder, like distance was something he could install between them with every step. But when he slid into the driver's seat and turned the key, something on the windshield caught his eye. A small cream-colored card, taped under the wiper blade. He peeled it off. In neat, looping handwriting. "If you ever want to finish the rest of the house." Below it, a phone number. He stared at it for a long second, then another. The truck engine rumbled beneath him, steady and old and real. He didn't smile. He didn't call, but he didn't throw the note away either. It had been 5 days. 5 days since the garage light, since the compliment, since the card on his windshield. 5 days of working other jobs, rewiring a kitchen in Westlake, replacing an entire circuit panel in a cramped crawl space out near. The cater jobs that required precision and focus, the kind DeShawn normally had no trouble summoning. But lately, his hands moved on instinct while his mind drifted back to that house, that woman, that note. He hadn't called, but he hadn't thrown the number away either. It sat on his dresser, folded once, then again, like it might contain more than ink, an invitation, like it held a question he wasn't ready to answer. By Thursday night, the edges of the card had started to curl. He unfolded it, thumb hovering over his phone. He wasn't the kind of man who just texted women, especially not ones who lived behind iron gates and drove imported cars. But something about the way she'd said it, "You're handsome," you know, that it hadn't been flirtatious. It had been clean, sharp, like a blade that sliced through silence. He sent a message. "This is DeShawn. If you've still got work, I've got time Friday after 3. He left it at that. No emoji, no exclamation, just the facts. An hour later, his phone lit up. The dining room dimmer switch keeps clicking. "Can you come tomorrow at 4? No greeting, no name, but he knew it was her. When DeShawn pulled up the next afternoon, the sky was heavy with storm clouds, but the rain hadn't started. He parked in the same spot, stepped out slowly, toolbox in hand. The front door opened before he knocked. Eva Langston was barefoot. This time, she wore an oversized gray sweater, sleeves rolled past her elbows, a pair of soft jeans hugging her hips. Her hair was still up, but looser, like she hadn't planned. "Company. Come in," she said softly. He hesitated on the welcome mat, one foot in and one out. Where's the switch? She led him through the foyer, her steps silent on the polished floor. The house smelled like lemongrass and dust clean, but lived in, not showy like he expected. Lived in, wounded, maybe. She pointed toward a half-lit dining room, the chandelier above clicking faintly with each flicker. It does that when the weather changes. I don't know why. Probably humidity creeping into the dimmer coil, he muttered, kneeling by the base panel. Seen it before. She crouched across from him. You're good at this. But I bet that's not the only thing you're good at. He didn't look up, just kept unscrewing. What does that mean? Nothing, she said. Just an observation. You make a lot of those. She smiled small, almost self-deprecating. Not really, just when something catches me off guard. Like me. He met her eyes now. There was again that pause, that unreadable flicker. Not flirtation, not seduction. Curiosity. Yeah, she said finally, exactly like you. He finished tightening the switch, then rose to his feet. It's fixed. Thank you. He started for the door, but just before he reached it, she said, You always run that fast? He turned slowly. I don't run. Then why do you? Always leave before I can say anything real. He swallowed. The question hung in the air like the humidity she blamed for the wiring. Heavy, uncomfortable. True, I'm not used to people like you noticing people like me. She stepped closer. And what am I? Exactly. He looked at her really. Look this time. Not the house, the money, the skin, her. I don't know yet, he said. And that's the part that makes me stay, or go. She nodded. Then maybe you should stay a little longer. A beat. Then thunder cracked outside, loud enough to rattle the windows. The first drops of rain followed, tapping against the glass like knuckles. He didn't move. Neither did she. The silence between them wasn't awkward now. It was charged. Fragile. Do you want coffee? She asked. He should have said no. Should have walked out like he always did. But instead, he nodded once. Yeah. Black. She turned toward the kitchen without another word, and for the first time in a long while, DeShawn stepped across the threshold not as a worker, but as a man who was finally letting himself be seen. The rain didn't let up die. It came down in sheets now, thick and hard, drumming against the windows like it had somewhere to be. Inside, the house felt like a different world, warmer, darker, quieter. DeShawn stood just inside the kitchen, taking it all in. Open shelving with hand-thrown pottery. A coffee maker that probably cost more than his truck, but nothing looked sterile. Nothing looked staged. The dishes in the sink were real. A small crack ran through the tile near the fridge. Eva moved like she belonged to the space, but wasn't obsessed with controlling it. She poured coffee with steady hands, her movements economical, but soft. She handed him a mug. No cream, no sugar. I remembered. He took it. Their fingers brushed. A jolt, quick, but not forgotten. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, loosely across her chest. You ever get tired of pretending you don't notice the things people don't say? He blinked. That's the very specific question. Eva smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I've seen how you watch people, DeShawn. How you keep your words closed, your steps measured, like you're constantly waiting for the invisible tripwire. He sipped his coffee. It was strong, bitter, good. That's how you survive. Is that all you want to do? Survive? He looked at her. Some days, yeah, especially in neighborhoods like this. A silence unfolded between them, one of those silences that wasn't empty, but full of things neither of them was ready to say aloud. Outside, the thunder rolled again, lower this time, like a reminder. I don't want to be a problem, DeShawn said quietly. Not for you, not for anyone. And this, whatever this is starting to feel like, it's the kind of thing people talk about. They already talk, Eva said, setting her mug down a little firmly. That's the part you don't understand. They talk when I go to the grocery store in sweats. They talk when I don't bring a date to charity events. They talk when I do. They don't care what I do, they just want to make sure I still know the rules. And what are the rules? She stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. Stay in your lane. Smile. But not too big. Don't ask questions. Don't answer them either. And whatever you do, don't bring home someone who makes people ask the wrong kind of questions. He watched her carefully. And what kind am I? She didn't blink. The kind that makes people uncomfortable with their comfort. There it was. Honesty. Raw. Stark. Unequivocal. He set his coffee down beside hers. I've lost jobs because I wore the wrong boots to the wrong house, he said. I've been followed out of stores. I've had cops ask me who I'm really working for. So when someone like you says something like what you said in that driveway, yeah, I notice, and yeah, I question it. Eva took a breath, as if steadying herself against something she couldn't yet name. And now I'm in your kitchen, which is probably a bad idea, but I haven't left yet. She reached out then, slow and unsure, and rested her hand lightly on his forearm. I'm not trying to collect you, DeShawn. I'm trying to understand why it feels like I've known you since before I met you. His breath caught. She was either playing a dangerous game or speaking a language he didn't even know he needed to hear. Then came the sound. A click. A camera shutter. It was faint but unmistakable. They both turned at once. Outside the kitchen window, a black sedan sat idling on the curb, a phone, angled just enough to capture them through the glass. DeShawn moved fast out the door, down the porch steps, rain hitting him in cold waves. But by the time he reached the curb, the car was gone. Just a faint tire tracks and the smell of wet asphalt. Back inside, Eva had gone pale. Who was that? He asked, breath still ragged. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was tight, controlled. My father's friends keep tabs on me. Always have. That wasn't random. You knew this could happen. I didn't think it would happen this fast. DeShawn paced the kitchen, rainwater pooling at his boots. This isn't a game, Eva. That picture, it goes out. It gets twisted. People start connecting dots that don't exist. I've seen what that does. It doesn't hurt you. She stepped forward. It hurts us. He froze. As she said it like it was real, like it already existed. He looked at her, really looked and realized something terrifying. He wanted it too. He wanted that us, but he wasn't sure if he could carry it. Not in this world. Not in this neighborhood. Not yet. She must have seen the shift in his eyes, because she stepped back, just slightly. Do you want to leave? She asked. He looked down at his hands, rough and calloused, scarred from years of work no one ever thanked him for. Then he looked at her. I want to understand why I'm still standing here. She didn't smile this time. She just whispered, me too. And for the first time since stepping foot in her house, DeShawn realized the wires weren't the only thing in this place that had been frayed for too long. The photo dropped late Friday night. Not to them, but to everyone else. DeShawn didn't even know it had happened until his phone buzzed at 6:42 a.m. on Saturday. The message was from Jordan, a guy he subcontracted with sometimes. Just a screenshot. No words, just a caption image, new definition of house call. It was him, standing in Eva's kitchen. Rain wet, close, the coffee mugs visible on the counter. Her hand on his arm. Someone had snapped the photo through the window, zoomed in, and posted it to a local gossip blog, one with just enough readers to be dangerous. The post didn't name them directly. It didn't have to. Her house was recognizable. His face was visible, and in a matter of hours, the post had been screenshotted, texted, and whispered into enough group chats to shift everything. By 10 a.m., DeShawn had lost to appointments. By noon, his boss at the wiring company left him a voicemail with a tone he knew to well cool, rehearsed. Distancing. Gonna need to reschedule you this week, man. Clients are asking questions. He sat in his truck outside a Waffle House off the highway, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. His whole life, he had learned to disappear when the spotlight came, not because he had something to hide, but because light had never been meant for men like him, unless it came with heat, scrutiny. Burned. So when he saw Eva's name flash across his phone screen, he didn't answer. Not the first time, not the second, not even the third. But when she called again that evening, twilight bleeding into the sky, he finally pressed accept. He didn't say hello. He didn't have to. They posted it, she said, voice tight, but not panicked. I saw. They're saying you're my contractor/companion. Some charity project I picked up between Pilates and property tax season. He didn't respond. Not right away. Just listened to the wind through the receiver. I didn't think it would go this far, she said. You didn't think. He echoed. Silence. Then softer. I'm sorry. You don't have to be sorry, Eva, he said. But you have to be real about what this is, what it costs. I am being real. He exhaled sharply, pulling off the highway into a darkened gas station lot. You don't know what it's like to walk into a job and feel the air shift before anyone says a word. To feel someone's eyes crawling over you, not because of who you are, but because of what they've already decided. She was quiet for a long time, then, almost broken. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's not about hurt, he said. It's about risk. Yours is social, mine is survival. Then why did you stay in that kitchen, DeShawn? The question knocked the air from his lungs. He didn't have an answer that wouldn't betray something fragile, because for 5 minutes, he finally whispered, I forgot to be afraid, and that terrified him more than anything. The next day, Eva called again. He didn't answer Dot, so she showed up Dot at his place. Dot not in her Lexus, not in designer heels, just jeans and a hoodie, hair tied back. No performance, just presence. He opened the door with a look that wasn't welcoming but wasn't closed either. You shouldn't be here, he said, then tell me to leave. He did in single quotes Dot instead. He stepped aside. She walked in slowly, eyes scanning the small space, a 2-bedroom with aging blinds, a cracked leather couch, and a shelf full of classic soul records. It smelled like cinnamon and soldered wires. Home. She sat down at the edge of the couch like someone visiting a sacred place. I didn't know they'd turn you into a headline, she said. But I should have. You didn't force them. I invited you in. That was enough. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees. They don't care what we are, just what they think it looks like. And what are we? He looked at her, really looked. Rain began to patter again outside, like a score cue in a film they hadn't agreed to star in. I don't know, he said. But whatever it is, it doesn't live in pictures. Eva leaned forward. Her voice dropped. Do you still want to see me? He hesitated. Dot then. Yes, but I don't want to be your rebellion. You're not. I don't want to be your regret. You won't be. A beat passed. Then she reached into her coat pocket and placed a folded piece of paper on the table between them. Then maybe it's time we stop pretending this is something we can keep quiet. He opened it slowly. Dot. It was a letter, addressed to the editor of the Charlotte Journal. Title, When Love Doesn't Come with Permission. She had written it, all of it. I haven't sent it, she said, but if you say yes, I will. He stared at the paper, heart pounding in his ears, because this wasn't just a story now. It was a statement. Dot, and once it was out, once they claimed this, they could never give it back. The letter was published the following Thursday. Dot, front page of the Charlotte Journal's Metro section. When Love Doesn't Come with Permission by Eva Langston. There were no pictures. No names, just words. But they were enough to set fire to everything. Eva didn't write about race and hashtags. She didn't couch her truth in apologies. She wrote about how people police intimacy when it steps outside of their comfort zones. How love becomes suspect when it's not packaged neatly and palatable. Boxes. How every glance, every whisper, every forced smile at the grocery store is a wall being rebuilt in real time. And how sometimes tearing those walls down isn't rebellion, it's survival. Dot, the internet devoured it. Some called her brave. Some called her delusional. One comment, read. Another white liberal romanticizing struggle for clout. This isn't love, it's a guilt trip with benefits. Another, he's not the story. She is. She always will be. DeShawn didn't respond publicly. Didn't post. Didn't retweet. He just watched. Watched as clients unsubscribed from his mailing list. Watched as a local blogger wrote an op-ed titled Power Tools and Power Plays, the optics of interracial fetish in gentrified neighborhoods. Watched as a job he'd scheduled for next week suddenly claimed they went with someone more experienced, even though he'd rewired their basement 2 months ago. But he also watched his inbox fill with strangers, some black, some white, saying things they hadn't said in years. I see you. This reminds me of my parents. Thank you for not hiding. Dot, and in all of it, one question rang loudest. Was it worth it? That Sunday, DeShawn walked into his mother's church in East Atlanta for the first time in years. Not because he needed saving, but because he needed silence. Dot, it didn't last. Midway through the service, as the choir's final notes echoed off the vaulted ceiling, an old friend from high school pulled him aside in the hallway. You good, D? He asked. I mean, really? DeShawn nodded. I'm fine. The man hesitated, then leaned in. I saw the article. That woman. You sure she sees you? Not just what you mean. DeShawn stared at him for a long second. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Before she figures it out for you. He walked away, leaving DeShawn in a hallway full of memories and doubts. Back at Eva's house that evening, the porch light flickered once then stayed solid. She opened the door before he knocked. "You're here," she said softly, like it still surprised her every time. He stepped inside. The living room was dimly lit, a single lamp casting gold across the hardwood. No music, no wine, just them. He sat. She followed. Neither of them spoke for a while. Then DeShawn pulled something from his jacket and handed it to her. It was a check from the Harrison job. He said, "I gave them your number last month for interior work. They called me back after the article." Eva blinked. "You're giving me money?" "I'm giving you credit. They hired you because you made them see you." She looked down at the check, then back up. "You didn't have to." "I did," he said, "because I need to know this is equal, that I'm not standing in your lifetime standing beside it." She didn't cry, but something in her posture collapsed like the breath she'd been holding for days finally let go. "I thought they'd only come for me," she whispered. "I knew they'd come for me," he replied. Eva stood, walked to the window. The street was empty, but her reflection looked back at her like a stranger. "Do you regret it?" He joined her. Their reflections stood side by side, hers in cream, his in charcoal. Contrast, not conflict. "No," he said, "but I hate that it cost us peace. You think it can't come back. I think it never existed. Not like we thought." She turned to him. "Then what do we do?" His jaw tightened. "We build something louder." But the next morning, the real storm hit. Not online, not in a blog. In Eva's world. Her father called. DeShawn didn't hear the words, but he saw them in her face as she stood on the patio. Phone pressed to her ear, spine stiff as steel. She hung up without a word and walked inside. Silent as smoke. "Was that him?" DeShawn asked. She nodded. "What did he say?" She didn't answer at first. Then he said, "I always knew you'd find a way to make yourself difficult to defend." The words landed between them like a weapon. DeShawn clenched his fists. "So I'm a liability now?" "No," she said sharply. "I am, because I refuse to walk backward." He stepped closer. "Then don't. But you might lose everything." "I already lost quiet," he said. "So I might as well fight for truth." She looked up at him, tired, trembling, and so goddamn alive. "Then we fight together." That night, they sent a joint letter to the Charlotte Ledger, accepting a live interview. No PR filter. No curated soundbite. Just them. Together, the segment was set for Friday night, and when it aired, nothing would ever be the same. The interview aired on a Friday night under storm-colored skies. It was live. No delays, no post-editing, just two chairs in a minimalist studio to mix. And to people who no longer had anything left to protect but each other, the host introduced them simply. "Tonight, we speak with Eva Langston and DeShawn Carter, the couple behind the article that sparked conversation across the South about race, class, and what happens when people love outside the lines." They didn't hold hands on camera. They didn't smile like influencers. They sat close, but not performative. Present, steady, real. DeShawn wore a charcoal button-down, sleeves rolled, eyes unwavering. Eva wore no makeup, hair pulled back, a navy blouse, and a small silver bold pin on her collar, his business logo. The questions came quick. Did you anticipate the backlash? Was this relationship planned to make a statement? Are you aware of the impact this has had on your respective communities? DeShawn's voice was even, precise. "We didn't do this to prove anything. We did it because silence wasn't protecting us anymore." Eva followed. "People see our photo and decide what the story is. But the real story? It's quieter than that. It's the kind you have to listen for." The host leaned in. "And what is the real story?" A pause. Then DeShawn said, "It's about a man who's worked with his hands his whole life, finally being held without conditions. It's about a woman who was told her life had to fit inside a gated box, finally choosing what's outside the walls. It's about building something with no blueprint except trust." Silence in the studio, heavy, sacred. The host cleared her throat. "You know this. This is going to follow you forever." Eva didn't blink, then let it. The next morning, the city woke up different. The video went viral not just locally, but nationally, not for its drama, not for scandal, but for its quiet, for the way it refused to beg for understanding, for the way it simply existed. They weren't trying to convince anyone anymore. They were just being. That's what changed everything. The real shift happened 3 weeks later. DeShawn stood on the porch of a property in East Charlottetown, old duplex with peeling paint and Mismatched gutters. A woman in her 60s greeted him with a hug, not a handshake. Been waiting for you, baby. She said, my grandson saw your interview. Wants to learn wiring. Says he's never seen someone look like him doing it on camera. DeShawn swallowed. Hard. Tell him to stop by the shop Tuesday. We'll make room. The Williams Carter workshop had opened quietly, no ribbon cutting, no press release. Just a repurposed brick building downtown, part electrical training space, part design studio, part community hub. Maya taught painting classes to kids whose schools had cut the arts. DeShawn led mentorship clinics for young men no one ever invested, and they hosted free fix-it days every month, repairs for single mothers, elderly couples, families rebuilding. And word spread, not because of their story, but because they stayed. One late autumn afternoon, after a long day of repairs and a longer evening of painting, Eva sat on the shop floor, back against the wall, toes bare as always, sipping cold coffee. DeShawn dropped beside her, exhausted but content. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You ever think about what would have happened if I never said it? Said what? That first day, in the driveway. You're handsome, you know that. He laughed quietly. I thought it was a setup. She smiled. It was a truth. They sat in silence a long time, the hum of the city fading behind the thick brick walls. Then DeShawn whispered, I want to show you something. He stood, pulled a rolled-up blueprint from behind the counter, laid it flat. It was a plan for a house. Simple, strong lines, big porch, workshop in the back, studio up top. Is this our house? He said. She looked up at him, eyes wide. You serious? He nodded. I'm tired of proving. I want to plant. Eva pressed her hand over her mouth, then looked back down at the blueprint. There's no garage light. He smirked. We'll wire that last. A year later, they stood on that very porch, paint still fresh, soil still damp from planting. Roots, their hands were rough. Their hearts were full. They didn't just survive the noise. They outbuilt it. And in a city once divided by lines, economic, racial. Imagine they didn't cross one. They erased it, together.